to the Dignity Dialogue with your host, Joe Kittinger.
Hey everyone, Joe Kittinger here with another Dignity Dialogue along with April Johnson.
Hello.
We have a special guest here, Cate, who I'd like to just do a formal introduction, Cate, because we are so delighted to have you here. Our subject today is fear. And Cate has done some great work around this subject of fear. But let me introduce you first. You are the Chief Marketing Officer for Nesnah Ventures. That's a private equity firm. You're going to see she's completely energetic. She is a driven marketing professional with more than 30 years experience. I feel like Monday, and a proven track record in all areas of marketing, including branding, innovation, and digital transformation. As an executive, she also has an extensive background in business acumen, value creation, and strategy for small to medium-sized businesses. Cate's business success earned her, which is a huge honor, which was just announced, the 2024 spot as one of the 100 titans of industry for the state of Wisconsin, which means she had to break through some fears to get there. Cool. She has a BSBA and an MBA and created the FEAR framework for selfless leadership, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And you are also the author of Confidence Counts and an adjunct professor in digital marketing. Welcome, Cate Hollowitch.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Got the name. Cate Hollowitch. Well, we are just so excited to have you, Cate. And obviously, we've spent some time with you, right? Getting to know you and all that awesome stuff. And your take on fear is actually a very refreshing, different approach that, quite honestly, I haven't heard before. And that's what attracted me to bringing you on the show to share it with others. And I know it's something you're passionate about, which is clear as you get to know her. So, Cate, why don't you just kind of set us up?
I'd love to. I stumbled onto this subject because, and full disclaimer, I am not any type of credentialed expert in this whatsoever, other than I am a human walking on earth, and I have been afraid.
I think that qualifies you.
That's all I need, right?
Well, and you want to do something about it.
And I want to do something about it, and I want to make it easier for other people that are, we're all in the same boat. And I was having this conversation once with someone who said, well, I'm really glad you're not trying to tell people to remove fear from their life. And that's not at all what I think is the answer, because obviously it's been given to us as a gift. It provides a service. There's useful fears, like the kind that make us run away from serial killers. And there's these useless fears that hold us back. And those are the ones that I focus on more of, is kind of when we get into our own heads about it, because the way our brain responds to fear is the same in both situations. So our bodies, the physical manifestation of it is the same, whether we're running from a serial killer or we're just trying to get up the nerve to go tell our boss we have a great idea. And the two situations are not at all comparable. The body doesn't know the difference. The body does not know the difference. And if you think about it, put yourself back into those moments when you're afraid. At your power-up event yesterday, you both had to get up on stage. There might be a moment where you're kind of like, okay, my knees start knocking together, my palms are a little sweaty, a little bit of the butterfly thing. When you go down a dark alley at night by yourself, you kind of get that same little whatever those manifestations are right before you go down there. And so your brain and your body are reacting to it the exact same way, but the thing that you're facing is not at all the same.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So my project was to figure out, how can I help the younger generation coming up behind me not do some of the same stupid things that I've done. And so, of course, I started this by figuring out the physical manifestations. How do we help people understand? And it happens different. The three of us all have different physical manifestations. I can't tell you what those are for you. I can tell you what they are for me. And then hopefully what that does is the people listening then think about, what are my physical manifestations? And then they can start watching for it when those moments occur. I'm like, okay, my knees are knocking together. I have to pace when I do public speaking. I can't stand behind the podium because my hands shake and my knees knock together. Yeah. So I have to pace the stage and walk back and forth because it hides it. I have to have a clicker in my hand. And so I have figured out what my physical manifestations are so that I can work to not let those distract me from the work to be done in the moment. So once we talk through those physical manifestations, then I like to talk about how it represents itself kind of in groupthink in the office. And I have a couple of favorites. One of my favorites is fear is like fire. And so it really does spread. through the workplace. And if we think about kind of our Canadian neighbors in the recent wildfires that they've been having, so many parts of the U.S. were impacted by something that was happening so far away from us. And the same thing happens at work with fear, that you can have somebody, a new leader's coming in. We're all going to go through those moments when our CEO retires or a whole new software change has to happen. And somebody sitting maybe even in a whole nother physical location of our organization is having fear over this that other people closer to you maybe are not having. Mm-hmm. But if that is left unchecked and somebody isn't helping that person navigate through it, it's going to spread further and further and further into the reaches of the organization.
You mentioned we were chatting just in preparation for this talk about how managing the emotions of your team is one of the biggest things a leader does. And you even brought up an example, like of a person, you brought up like a program change. So use that example. I love that example.
So I think common business changes, the one example I used off the cuff was a software change. Softwares change. You're using whatever accounting software now today, that's great. That company goes out of business, you have to change. This stuff happens all the time. But people love their thing. They love their routine. They love the system. They love the expectation. They love knowing what their day is going to bring when they get there every Monday, and then this thing is throwing a lump in. So April may not be afraid of that. She may think, yep, that's fine. I got it. I understand the concept. I know it's changing. I got my mind around it. I'm ready. But Joe can be really freaked out. And you're over there really navigating how to get through this because it's not the same for you as it is for April. Mm-hmm. And so as the manager, part of what I do is try to understand how each of these changes are impacting each individual person in my care, because I have to make sure that your fear doesn't spread to her. Right. Unintentionally. Yeah. It is not intentional. Nobody has any bad intentions.
Share my anxiety to create more anxiety.
But you need a space to share your anxiety and to share your fear and to process it out loud or whatever it is that makes you tick, whatever your way is of dealing with this. And I have to help you figure out what that is, but I have to make sure that it doesn't push April into a place she doesn't need to be. And so it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of work managing people. And then I have to do it for myself too, because then I may have my own situation not connected to the software that I'm freaking out about over here. And I don't want them to have my fear.
You can't share that. Yeah.
And I can't share it because it could be because I have to change a role on my team. It could be something completely unrelated to the software thing that I'm trying to navigate for you people, but then I'm also trying to not bring my own thing into the middle of it and spread my own. And it's like a massive chessboard, and it's exhausting. I mean,
I think about April, our director of coaching and curriculum, has written an awesome curriculum around leading versus managing. Mm-hmm. And I think what she's talking about speaks a lot to what the research you've done and your team has done.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That balance between, leading people and inspiring people and casting vision and being able to have those difficult conversations and all those things. But then you also have things that have to get done. Right? Mm-hmm. You have software that has to get changed. Yeah. You have, all those, you have time management. You have, we work on things like the funnel. How many things do you own as the leader, right? As the manager, and how many things do you really need to find a way to empower your people to do? And where is kind of that fine balance of it? And I think a lot of times leaders find themselves so overwhelmed by the people side, right? I don't know what to do to help Joe. I don't know what to do because I got my thing here, and I'm just trying to get through my thing, which has nothing to do with Joe's thing, but I'm not sure how to do both of them at the same time. And I think that's something that as especially young leaders, they have not learned that art of asking for help. They haven't learned that art of, hey, let's just sit down and talk, and together let's see if we can find a way for Joe to not have as much anxiety about that software change, and for April to be empowered to help, everybody feel good about the software change, because April's the cheerleader. You rah, this is going to be great. Yeah. We're all going to get there together, that type of thing. How do we empower that person? And then how do we balance that with this, I've got to maybe change a role, or I've got some things that I can't really talk to my team about. And how do we put that all together and balance it? And sometimes it's just the matter of just getting together with a group of leaders, and as they dialogue and they communicate, they go, oh my gosh, you too? oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, I don't feel so bad now. Let's talk, let's get ideas. So I think it is really important for leaders. They can't be on an island unto themselves. They need to be communicating and connecting with other leaders in order to feel like, wow, I've got a team. Like I've got something I can grab from.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think, we've all heard the people process systems, mantra, which there's a lot of truth to that, because I think in all the things we're doing, the people part of it is the one thing we can't screw up.
Yeah.
And you can't screw that up.
They're the activators.
They have to, the software is not going to get changed. If you screw up the people in the middle that have to do it. And the product isn't going to get out the door, and the sales aren't going to happen, and the whatever isn't going to occur if you screw up the people. And so for me, I maybe kind of overcompensate with trying to ensure that I get the people part right before I worry about the other stuff, which is why some of these conversations we're having are so important.
I love it.
Well, I'm thinking about when you talk about fear, when you're going, you mentioned that people don't always share, right? Well, because of fear, that's our subject, right? And then when they realize, oh, you have that too? Like we're in the boat together?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm not the only one who feels, this way or that way. I do want to talk about, and you've inspired a thought for me, Cate, on this subject, is the ability to share your anxiety or your fears with someone. Mm-hmm. Would you say it's a safe rule to say that it has to be either shared at a peer level or up?
I think it depends on the thing you're afraid of. Leadership is lonely.
Yeah.
And yesterday at your Power Up conference, I think it was Tom Thibodeau who said, loneliness, I'm going to get this totally wrong, loneliness is the person feeling that they're not that they have nothing to give.
Yes.
That they have nothing to give. And so leadership is lonely because, yes, I think generally speaking, you don't want to vent down. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a general practice, right? But even venting across. So if the three of us are an executive leadership team and we have a CEO above us, technically the three of us are equals.
Right.
But that fear is like fire thing is still a thing. You two may not be afraid of the new executive coming into our circle that we just hired, and I might be.
Okay.
And I don't need to spread that around. And so sometimes some of our fears are not, venting across is not the way to do it either. And as humans, we have to kind of navigate for ourselves a way to understand when can I go up, when can I go over, and when can I go down. I think sometimes going down is maybe when somebody on my team and I both had a good example might be we had a unpleasant experience with a vendor.
Okay.
Like my teammate and I are in the same boat in that case. And can I voice my frustration to her offline and say, what a jerk. Can you believe they raised our prices on us? And fine. You know what I mean? Because we were in it together. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
She's experiencing it too. Her seeing my vulnerability and me not being awesome 100% of the time is also probably good.
Yep.
There's some benefit to that too, but it's situational. It's understanding situationally. It's okay for her to see me lose my mind today. I have a unique challenge in that I manage my boss's children. So I spend a lot of time at work going, don't tell your dad I said that. It's kind of my catchphrase. Oh, here she goes again. So I do say that quite a lot. Don't tell your dad I said that.
I love that.
It's super fun. Now I've made a joke out of it with him. I say it about everything now just to kind of make him think, does she mean that? Does she not mean that?
Yeah. That's cool.
That's funny. And you bring up a really interesting point when you're talking about this idea of when do I go across, when do I go up, when do I go down? I think this is a really hot topic across many different companies, particularly because we also are building culture, right? There's a very important element of culture, which is like we are all in this together.
Yes.
We're all the same. We're one team. We are fuzzying the line of hierarchy.
Yeah.
Hierarchy is not as noticeable and not as prevalent in today's workforce, as it has been certainly in generations past. And so we're all kind of together. But what you're talking about then all of a sudden means, okay, but now I have to figure out, like, we're all together except in this case. And so now what do I do with this? Like I have something, we're all together on everything else.
Right.
So that's an interesting dynamic.
And then what about that dynamic that we're all individual contributors and we're friends, and April gets promoted and now she's our boss. And now she's not talking to us on Monday the way she talked to us on Friday. And now we're making up stories in our head about what's going on with her. And now you got a whole nother dynamic in there. And now we're making up fear stuff over here that is not at all the truth.
Well, that's a really good point. Just, we have conversation all the time because that's what we help leaders do, where it's almost like, well, this person don't get along. So I can't, if I promote this person, I mean, if you brought up a really good subject matter for us to that could be a whole podcast.
That's another one.
7 chapters.
Somebody write it down quick.
Give us
Get me
give
that
us
on
your
video.
viewpoint on that. Is there truth to saying, well, politically we have these talented people, but if I promote April in this case, and I know Cate will feel this way, and I could lose Cate, maybe I should promote this person.
Well,
leave Cate and April alone.
These are kind of the conversations throughout the years we've had with.
Yes, and it's even, Cate is a fantastic, and this has actually happened to me. Kate's a fantastic individual contributor. She's crushing it. If I promote her out of that job, I got to hire 2 people to replace her.
Yep.
I can't have that. Therefore, I'm going to promote this guy over here who can't do anything. Because I need to get him out of the toxic situation that he created over there. So I know, let's give him a better job. Happens all the time. And the people who are sitting there, they see you're not hiding anything and you're not fooling anybody.
Right.
Like your people on your team know you are doing these things. Yes. So stop it. There's a lot of you have to really think through. It's why I think a system like what you're doing with Dignify can be helpful, because you're looking at some of those underlying traits of people that have characteristics that can do the things that the organization is looking for them to do in a way that isn't relying on the personal opinion in the middle, or of the people that are blocking or promoting or have the power to block or promote people through the ranks.
You're reminding me of an exercise I did a couple of years ago where I hid the names on the snapshot. Mm-hmm. The avatar was hidden, the name was hidden, the he and she I hid, so you didn't know if it was, what it was. And they were like, I go, here's your talent. Now this person, the decision maker, knew enough about Dignify to understand how to interpret it. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, this person could lead this. And then when you took the names off, they're like, oh no, I can't, because, right? Then there was like, oh, that's the name. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, geez, how would this person feel about that?
And then off they go.
Take the names off of it, and then off they go back to their humanity of fear.
Yep.
Just looking at that set of fit, who fits the best.
Right.
And who's willing, who's interested, who's necessary, who's the right fit.
And you said something a second ago, you made the statement, and then what if I lose her?
Yes.
You're going to lose them anyway.
The story.
You're going to lose them either way.
It means their heart's not fully in it.
Well, and if you promote the Yahoo who can't do anything over the person who deserves it because you're afraid that that job is going to not be done correctly, you're going to lose that high performer anyway. Yep. If you surround your rock stars with mediocrity, they are going to leave anyway.
Yep.
So you're not thinking through kind of all the chess moves of, I'm doing this thing out of fear to prevent this thing from happening. You're self-preserving, which is my favorite facet of fear, is self-preservation. And all the dumb activities we do to preserve and hold on to the thing, the world, the environment we've created, that the very thing you are trying to prevent happens anyway. You create a self-fulfilling prophecy around it.
Yes, it's that information on worthiness that I uncovered where it says, as soon as I realize I'm worthy, I no longer have to self-promote my interests.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, which brings us into your acronym of fear really well. So, tell us about this acrostic.
Or acronym. I looked them both up yesterday.
Yeah,
we had this debate, everyone,
on
an acrostic versus an acronym.
Yes.
And so, April, take it away.
I did look up both definitions in the Webster Dictionary yesterday.
Go ahead.
And both of them state that the letters represent another word that you're using. One, the acrostic, mentions a poem that it could be a poem that's written, like each letter of it is a poem. And the acronym does not mention like a writing element. It's very specific to a word.
IBM.
Yep, exactly.
IBM stands for this.
The initials that spell
no one
out
really remembers
a
anymore.
word. So if your initials don't necessarily spell out a word, like para, P-A-R-A, right?
Yep.
It has to spell out a word. I think that was the only difference between the acronym and the acrostic. So I think
Acrostic spells a word.
Mine
Got
has
it.
to be acrostic then
Then
because
it's an acrostic.
Darn it! Oh,
Now you guys have learned the
gosh.
difference as we have.
Yes.
And so thank you for that clarity.
no, fear is a word.
I know, so it's
it
an
would
acrostic.
it would be an acronym.
Well, IBM
no, because
is
I have
not a
more.
word,
I have
and that's
more
an acronym.
than one word for each of those
Oh,
letters.
for each of those letters,
Yeah,
you do
so
have
mine
more
is
than
an
one word, so
acrostic.
that's an acrostic.
Yes. I believe IBM stands for International Business Machines. In case
No,
you
it
were
doesn't.
wondering.
It stands
Isn't it? I don't know.
stands for I believe machines are good. And anyway, so tell us about
I'm a
your
trivia geek on top
acrostic
of
or
it.
acronym or whatever the
Oh,
hell.
well, I have to kind of, I have to
fear.
change my whole
know.
thought process on this. My dad was a lover of acronyms, and he used to write little Post-it notes to my children every morning, all in acronyms, for them to kind of solve
great.
before he went off to school. So I've always called this an acronym, but now I'm learning it's an acrostic. So
Okay, so I took my
Okay,
notes
so-
on it too. So
yes,
fear.
So fear.
F.
F stands for favor others.
So this is how to get out of fear.
It's how to no.
Is this how to get out of fear? Because
I don't want to talk about getting out of fear because I
Okay.
don't want to encourage people to cast it aside or try to get rid of it or think that that is the goal, which actually that'll be relevant when we get to R.
Okay.
It's more about how to just kind of
How to address
how
it?
to address it.
how to address
And
fear.
how to
Okay.
do the next move.
Okay,
how to
good.
take the next step and how to get yourself kind of, this is happening
like
to me,
the
what do I do
instructions.
next? It's like, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like a little,
Got
Instruction
yeah,
manual.
a little cheat sheet.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm in fear. F is
in fear. F
first, favor others.
Favor others. So this one I love because the concept of self-preservation that we do, the action that we take when we self-preserve, this one is designed to help us kind of head that off at the pass. We find ourselves in self-preservation mode often when we're not only afraid, but also hurt. So yesterday we talked a lot about, there was some conversations around when our dignity is hurt, and then self-preservation can show up in those moments too. And it's hard to stay in that place when you're already in the habit of favoring others. And so I think it was Adam Rifkin who started this concept of 5-minute favors, and I've kind of stolen it because it's so inspiring to me. Spend a few minutes every day doing something nice for somebody that does nothing for you whatsoever, that
5-minute
provides
favors.
no value to you. So if I notice somebody on my team, here's a great example. One of our business leaders was needing to install some new software in their organization. And the IT department went up there to do it, and everything was going awry. I mean, nothing was going according to plan. And I was not part of this. But when they got back, I got an email as part of the executive team from a technician in our IT department who was sending a note to all of us to say that that business leader showed grace and compassion and strength and wisdom, all of it, because all of this was going awry. Her POS, it's a restaurant, her POS system was going down, her scanners weren't working, the credit cards weren't working, there was a line of customers out the door. And the note to all of us was that this individual never lost her composure. She didn't lose her mind at her employees. She wasn't off her game. She was just kind of doing her thing. So the IT person who sent the email was favoring others, because what does that IT person get out of that email?
Well,
what did they get out of it?
The IT was all messed up, which
And it
is
was-
typically their fault,
Right.
right?
So, I mean,
So that
truly,
showed
they
great
get a
character.
huge atta-girl, atta-boy, whatever, whoever it is, and the opportunity for their leader to see
Right.
just how well they did in
and,
that.
And
an
think of the
opportunity to
ripple
be
effect.
seen.
Yes,
Yes.
the IT person probably felt really good about herself
Yeah.
for sending the email, which she should. That's
Yep.
a wonderful thing to do. The IT person's boss gets to say, wow, my employee is a decent human today. Look at the character she showed. The boss of the business leader gets to say, my employee did a really great job in a hard moment. That's amazing. And we have no idea what that business leader was going through in that moment,
Yes.
personally or otherwise. And that could have been something that really pushed her into a place of, I'm worthy.
Yes.
And it
Worthy.
could have been something that she needed in that moment and nobody knew. So favor others.
Okay.
Just spend 5 minutes every day and just do something nice for another human. Maybe let the dude in the lane on the highway who goes
Right.
racing down the merge. Just let him in I mean, maybe he has to go to the bathroom. I don't know, but just let him in.
know.
We don't
Or
know.
has an
don't
emergency
know.
he needs to get to.
Exactly. Just let him in and don't get all road
love
ragey
that.
about
I
it.
agree.
And that's great. It's great practice. I know, I go through the drive-through a lot. Yes, I go through the drive-throughs a lot. A busy life and go through the drive-throughs, but I love coffee. And I have, one of the things that I have picked up since I've gone through the drive-throughs a lot is that's where I practice like kindness, and I practice just
Patience.
saying something nice, and I do practice patience. And it was probably about a month ago now, but I was in the line at a spot getting my coffee, and we were only in line like 5 minutes. I mean, we really weren't even there very long, right? But the person in front of me was quite upset by the fact that we were in the line for a while. And she kind of let the girl at the drive-through window have it, when she got up there. Like I could hear her.
Okay.
In my car. My window was down, but I could hear her.
I've seen road rage in the
Right?
Oh, my
drive.
goodness.
And she kind of let that girl have it. And I thought, and the thought I had was that girl is going to have to take that, right? And then she's going to have to put that away because she's got to be kind to me, right? Mm-hmm. And give me my coffee with a smile and have a great day and all that kind of stuff, And so when I got up to the window and she turned, and you could see she was flustered, but she put that big old smile on her face and she said, "I'm really sorry it's taking a little bit longer today," immediately apologized to me. And I said, "Girlfriend, don't you listen to a thing that lady said." I said, "Don't even worry about it." And she just,
Worthiness.
But it's like,
Yes.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It's so little. I mean, I drove off thinking that really took nothing from me to help her.
I agree. And what you did was you were being human.
Yes.
Right? Sharing some empathy. And that's our mission. Really, when you say dignity in the workplace, it's allowing people to be human and giving them tools to be more confidently them. Really?
Yes.
Because to say just be yourself, I mean, sorry, I have fears. I have all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure nobody wants me to be myself 100% of the time.
But offering space, right? Offering space to be human.
Yes.
Right.
And put it in your system and your process to allow the space to be human.
Yep.
Yes.
With love events, living your value events, or any sort of last 10% we do where you share your fears with your leader in a safe space. These are the kind of things that we can help people remind them to be human.
We have no idea what's happening in that. I have no idea what is going on in that young lady's world that's at the drive-through, and she could be terrified.
Yes.
I have no idea.
Right.
And when you start to really think about it, you recognize it is very simple. We complicate it. We complicate things so much, right?
Yes.
But it's so simple to lift somebody up instead of tearing somebody down.
We can't handle this stuff in our 50s. Why are we flinging that kind of crazy town on a 16-year-old kid in a Starbucks?
I know.
Right.
That's so inappropriate.
Yeah.
And
I still screw it up, by the way. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're human.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm human,
Yes.
and I
human.
still make mistakes,
Yes.
and I don't have it down. I don't have it all down. But you're right. The opportunities that you take to favor someone else, it just shuts off the thing that is revving in you turns off.
It's almost like a switch. It's like as soon as you're nice to somebody else, you're suddenly not mad anymore.
Yes.
And it's hard to, you all have some childhood photos of yourselves in the building. And Joe and I this morning, I made a joke, but I kind of meant it seriously of it's hard to yell at that little kid. So it's the same kind of concept. It's hard to be mad at your coworker, your former, your partner, executive, your boss, when you're favoring them as well.
Yes.
When you're doing nice things for them, when you're putting them out there, when you're complimenting people, it's hard to come down on people in an offensive and hurtful and undignified way when you are in the habit of treating them as the valuable human they are.
That's right.
Especially when they're so cute and they have an afro.
Oh my gosh.
Adorable. I'm just saying.
Adorable.
Especially when
I
they're
love
so
it. I
cute.
love the idea.
I digress, but
Well, maybe you could show the picture. I'm looking at Taylor right now, who's our editor.
Yay, Taylor.
You could maybe take a picture of that
Really?
board and just include it in our little post. Okay, let's move on to
Yes.
E.
Okay, E. Emulate your heroes. I love this one too
that's a good
because Sometimes I'm an island. I'm fiercely independent. I can do anything I put my darn mind to. But when I am in a moment of fear, I sometimes feel like I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't go tell my boss this crazy idea because I know my boss and he's going to hate it and he's going to think I'm a wingnut and I don't have all my ducks in a row and I don't have all the data and I don't have the, and I'm just so excited about it and I just know it's going to work and nobody can see it but me and I can't, all the stuff, right? So emulate your heroes came from, I'll tell the quick backstory because, it's the thing. When my father passed away, my daughters and I were trying to put together photos for his funeral. And it was hard, but it was fun, but it was hard. And I had this moment because I'm, self-absorbed sometimes of like, I looked at my girls and I'm like, I don't trust you people. There is no way you three are going to put flattering photos of me up at my funeral. And I'm not having any of it. So I destroyed all the unflattering photos of myself. And I've made a funeral box. So the funeral box and all the photos that are on display in our house are fair game that can go up at my funeral.
Sure.
That's the
Anything
rule.
framed and up, of course.
Exactly. Take it down, put it up there. Yeah. These are the rules. So what I found myself doing, because when I've had to do some kind of hard things, there's a really great picture of my dad and I in that funeral box. And my dad it's always been one of my heroes, of course. And so I went to the funeral box and I'm like, where's that picture of my dad? And I wanted to find that one picture because I wanted to just kind of look at him before I went and did this hard thing. And then that's where I got this idea from of that gave me courage to say, okay, that man battled cancer. He raised 3 children alone. Why am I so freaked out about going in and telling my boss that I want to do a new trade show booth? I mean, come on. So it really kind of put into perspective, like, am I kidding myself? Like, what am I not even on the same playing field? And then it just kind of turned into this bigger thing. And it was partially about the people in my life. There's lots of people in my life that have done way harder things than I have, way cooler things than I have that are brave and smart and done all this stuff, but there's also just people out in the world that I've never met that have done really great things too. And so I started creating this little hero box instead of a funeral box because that sounds better. And I have a digital version and I keep it on a little flash drive. So even before coming over here this morning, one of my processes, I got my cup of coffee and I'm in my hotel room and I opened up my hero box and I flipped through the images on my hero box of all the people that have inspired me in the world and in my personal life. And like, if they can do that, somebody can go to the moon, somebody can climb Mount Everest, somebody can survive cancer 5 times, whatever the story is, I can go do a podcast with these 2 delightful humans. Like, let's be real. So emulate your heroes. Make a little way to kind of encourage yourself that there's shoulders of people you can stand on when you have to do something hard and important.
Yes, I love that. So that's emulate. That's the F and the E. And now we're going to the A.
Align with others. This one is important too. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but the animal kingdom, we all know this, they freeze when they're faced with fear. They fly or they fight. And humans are part of the animal kingdom. And so we do the same 3 things, but we do one thing different than the rest of the animal kingdom. We flit our eyes back and forth because we're looking for another human to align with. The rest of the animal kingdom is kind of like self-preservation mode. I'm in it for myself. I got to get out of here, and they go. And we look for somebody to help us or whatever. And one of the stories I tell in my book that I wrote is about a young girl who loved show choir and loved performing, but at her senior concert, she froze out of fear when she was doing her solo. All the seniors were allowed to do a solo at their last performance, and she froze. And she darted. I remember watching her dart her eyes back and forth, looking for somebody to connect with before hightailing it off stage. And it was heartbreaking. And it's
Do you remember the song?
I do. I'll tell you. It's so funny.
Really?
It's so funny. So I remember the eye darting, and I found out later, and there's I don't even know who says this. It might be Simon Sinek, but I don't want to misattribute who said this. But we regret the things we never did. And her teacher actually told her that off stage, which I found out later, that the teacher said to her, you're not going to regret going up there and kind of sucking it. I mean, let's be real. You don't have to be great at it, and it doesn't have to be the best thing you've ever done. And you're not going to regret as much if you do a bad performance, but you will totally regret never trying. And you will never get over that for the rest of your life if you don't go back out there and do it again. So she went back out there and did it again.
Oh, so she was like in the lineup. She froze, went off, and then came back
and they,
later.
well, the show must go on.
Oh,
right?
sure.
And so they just went to the next kid, and they just kept moving. And I'm sitting there with my soul crushed. So, okay, this was my daughter. So that's my person. It was my daughter.
Your daughter.
So it was just why I know the story so well.
Yes.
And when she was flitting her eyes, she was looking for me.
Yep.
And she couldn't see where I was sitting because of bright lights and everything. And so she scurried off stage. And so the show must go on, and they kept going. But as soon as they went to the next kid in rotation, I'm sitting there with my heart in my stomach like, she missed it. It's done. I mean, they're going to just keep moving. And then all of a sudden there was somebody kind of sitting next to me on the ground, and it was her teacher. And she's like, she's going to go again. We're sticking her back in. And my daughter's grandmother was her accompanist. So I had to, and the reason, so it was this process of
Grandma
nudge
was going to be
grandma
up on stage with
playing
her
the piano. She was.
So Grandma was, then she came back because she
and Grandma's
doesn't want to
like,
do it.
Yeah, what do I do?
Got it.
So then I had to like nudge Grandma and go, you got to go back up there. And she's like, so I got Grandma's, it was crazy town. It was so funny. So Morgan goes back up on stage and she belted it out and she nailed it. And it was beautiful. And the song she sang was You Haven't Seen the Last of Me from Burlesque.
Aww.
And one of the other parents came up to me afterwards and he just looked at me. He's like, that was rigged. And then he walked away. I'm like, I didn't know what he meant. And then I thought about it. I'm like,
But it couldn't
that's
have been.
hilarious.
Yeah.
It could not have, you could not write this stuff.
No. For
It was
what she
great.
had just endured.
Yeah.
In that short period of time.
Yeah.
That is a perfect song.
Yeah, and I mean, I still get goosebumps. And actually, the video recording of her singing that song is in my hero file. And I listen to it often because it's one of those moments that I just think, if she can do that, I cannot sing. I can't sing Happy Birthday. And my kid got up in front of 100 people and belted out a song at 17 years old. Why am I worried about telling my boss I got a great idea?
That's so true.
I
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So align with others. So I kind of got off subject on that.
That's
Align
okay.
with others is your eyes flit back and forth looking for another human. So find that human to connect with. But in the example we gave of the software implementation
And the fire,
maybe don't align with somebody who's on fire. Like, as humans, you have to kind of understand who is the person to align with, not the person burning.
Watch the flame.
Who's a burning dumpster fire on their own. And as leaders, we have to help our people understand, April, maybe you should go and talk to Sally. Sally went through this with a different program last year, and she came through it really, really great. And I think you might benefit from her wisdom. It's navigating that versus, I'm not going to let you talk to Joe because Joe is a dumpster fire. And we're going to put Joe and align him with somebody else who's going to put out the dumpster fire. And you have to kind of navigate those relationships
Interesting.
and those
really
personalities at play.
So makes a difference who you align with. And one thing that jumped in my head when we were talking about it earlier, and again, as you mentioned it here, is that we have a drive, many people, particularly highly empathetic people, feel as though I need to align with this person to help them through. Like I'm not totally sold on the idea, but I get it. I'm good. And I know that so-and-so isn't. And so I need to help so-and-so. I need to help so-and-so. And we find ourselves maybe getting dragged down in situations. It could be work, it could be personal, there's lots of ways that you can look at that. But we end up getting dragged down by the very person, right? That by the fire, because we want to try to put it out, right? Yes. And so there is an element of self-preservation in that, right? Like we have to be selective.
Yes.
And ourself is really the reason why we still do have to protect ourselves.
Yes.
And at some regard.
Yes. And I love Tom Thibodeau's story of the parachute packer, because really what you're aligning with is you need your parachute packer, not somebody else who's also kind of on fire. Your job in that moment is not to put out their fire. Your job is to make sure that your parachute works, because think of the airlines and they tell you in the video, put your mask on before helping another person. Yep. It's that. You got to make sure that your mask is working before you're any good to any other human on earth. And their fire it's not your job to put it out. It's maybe your job to alert somebody, hey, Joe's on fire. Can somebody jump in here and do it? Can't be me. But helping kind of bring the right people to the table. But what I'm thinking of with this align with others is you got to look for your parachute packer. Who's the person that's going to make sure all of your equipment is working so that when you jump out of the airplane, you're good to go and you're not going to crash and burn. And they are disconnected from the fear you're experiencing. They're just that you got this, go for it, put on the parachute. I double checked it. Everything is all right. And I'm going to be waiting at the finish line when you get there.
Yeah.
You're looking for that human to help you get through there.
That's good. Mm-hmm. And there's that certainty. There's that commercial that's on TV. I don't know if you've ever seen it about the girl is ready to jump off the plane and there's a parachute packer and she's like, is it good? And he's like, and she goes, are you sure? And he goes,
Not that guy.
You don't want that person.
right.
You don't want that person.
You got this person. You want this person.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Get that parachute packer.
Let's move to the R.
I love it.
Oh, reframe your views is R, and I love this one.
I love
because
that one.
I am, when you look at all those DISC profiles, I'm kind of like the asshole of the personality tests. I'm a D on the outside edge of the circle. I don't shade into the other sections. I am results driven. My strength finders are strategic, significance, achiever, competition, relator. When I get to number 4 like that, I lose people. They're kind of like, ugh. And so when somebody says to me, we have a 20% increase in revenue goal, maybe that is a huge dollar amount, like 20 million over last or something. I'm like, yeah, let's go get this. And everybody's going, what? They're trying to do the math in their head. I'm like, we got it, let's go. And I just want to like go and get it. But I forget that that's hard because then when day 5 of a calendar year comes around and I've decided to clean my office and organize my papers and get rid of all my stuff from last year and go through some emails and organize some files. I'm now 5 days behind on my goal because 365 days to get to 20 million is a long time and I don't feel like I have to worry about it January 5th. But I need to reframe my views because not everybody in my circle, not all the humans in my care think about that goal as something achievable in that large context.
Yeah.
So part of our job as leaders and for ourselves is to kind of break it down.
Yep.
So when we were talking about how I created this framework in the first place, I couldn't just say, I'm going to create a framework today.
Right.
There you go. And then in the end day, I got done. Like, that's not how it worked. So I first had a version. First, I got asked to speak about something, and I did it. And then I was like, well, I kind of want to tweak this, and I want to tweak that, and I want to make a little change over here. And then I made that change. And then I went and did this other thing to land at where I am today. But I didn't just sit down and say, I'm creating this framework and there it is. And so we have to take those revenue goals or those software implementations. That's why project managers are so amazing and such a vital part of our work because they take it and they break it down into these smaller chunks. So if we have to do $1 million increase in 30 days, what does that mean I have to do today? I have to get 100,000 or whatever the math is. Mm-hmm. And so, okay, let's just worry about the 100 grand. Let's not worry about the million that we have to have in 30 days. Let's just worry about the 100 grand. What do we have to do to get the 100 grand? And now you've made it bite size. 100 grand's not bite size, but
it depends on the context.
It depends on the
Really
context, right?
It could be, depends
Size
on
of the
context.
mouth.
Exactly.
Depends on the size.
Exactly. So you have to think about the people on your team and how others are interpreting your enthusiasm. And you're like, attaboy, go get them. You got this. And they're like, 20 million. I don't know how to start. You can't just fling things like that out into the world and expect that people aren't going to be freaked out and afraid of their ability to hit this audacious thing you put in front of them. Mm-hmm. And yourself included. You may think, yeah, I got this. I'm good in that moment. And the person who can look at the 20 million and think that's amazing, maybe they have no idea how to write a book. And they're like, I really want to write a book, but I have no idea how to get there.
Yep.
And they can't put the two into the same context. And so when you're afraid of something, just kind of think about what you're trying to achieve. What is it you're afraid of? I have to go tell my boss I have this great idea. And that on its own just may be a lot. But maybe my first step is I'm going to align with April and I'm going to tell April my idea and see what April thinks. And watch her reaction, test market it before I go to the big dog, And so break down the thing you're trying to achieve, the thing you're afraid of, and try to put it into a smaller goal and maybe just achieve that first and see how it felt. Test drive it.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Mm-hmm. I like that. It's interesting. I have a dear friend of mine who has been a friend forever. At least that's what it feels like, right? She's kind of rolled with everything with me, right? And I want to write a book. That's one of the things that I want to do. I'm in the process of writing a book. It's been a while. I mean, I've been on the process for a while. I'm learning. I'm not a hugely patient person. I'm working on that. The book's helping. But I found that I was somebody, I'm like, well, I love story. I love telling stories. I love, this should be a piece of cake for me. And isn't.
It's not.
It's not a piece of cake for me. And
It's vulnerable.
it's so much to sit and do the typing and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, I'm a storyteller. Like I love telling stories. But I don't know that I really like putting all of it into the right format and all that kind of stuff, right? So my dear friend said to me, well, April, you tell stories all the time. So why don't you just, when you're telling a story, just nonchalantly hit record on your phone and just start recording your stories as you tell them. And then give it to me. And I'll put it on paper for you, right? And then you can read it and decide what you want to use it for. Like, what do you want to have? What do you want that to say in the book, right? And decide that. And I have to tell you, like that was like oxygen to this whole writing book thing.
Right.
Right. Because I just thought, oh, I'm just going to be that person that says I'm writing a book when I'm 80 and it's still not done.
Right.
Right. And now I see we've made some progress. I know what stories I want to have in the book now. I know, and now I can write around that. I can pull the lesson out of that. I can, all those things. But it required me to ask for help.
And you aligned with somebody
And I
else
aligned with
who
somebody.
had the thing that you couldn't do, like had the missing
did not
gap.
see that.
Yeah.
And it just, as you were talking about it, I just reminded me of that, that process, and just the importance of that, so that makes sense. It makes great sense.
Pushing through fear. Cate, how do our listeners connect with you? You have a book, Confidence Counts, and you have this fear framework that you speak on for selfless leadership. How do folks follow up with you?
I think the easiest way is to just find me on LinkedIn because I have such an unusual name that I'm the only one. So when people Google Cate with a C and Hollowitsch into LinkedIn, I pop right up and they can find me that way. Nesnah Ventures, the company I work for, is also very unique, easy to find by Googling that as well. And you can find me on their homepage and send me an email that way. So that's probably the easiest ways to get to me.
Well, I'm so pleased that you could be on the other side of the state. She's in La Crosse, Wisconsin. We're in Green Bay. It's around 3.5 hours away from each other. It's so excited to see you at our Power Up. So I'm glad this could all work out to have you here in studio and not on a Zoom link.
Awesome.
This was fun. I've never done a podcast live in a studio, and this was great. Very energizing.
Yay.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah, it is.
Well, and your message was important. Your message is key for all leaders out there to hear, and that's why we wanted you to be a part of the Dignity Dialogue with us. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I got so much out of your Power Up yesterday, and the messages that you're putting out in the world are really vital, and it's only added to the knowledge that I have, and I feel like you've given me some nuggets that I'm going to steal and give you credit for.
Good.
As I continue to talk about it and help connect you with the world as well, because it was life-changing yesterday. So thank you for letting me come and enjoy your conference.
There's another Dignity Dialogue with Joe Kittinger and April. We'll see you next time.
This has been the Dignity Dialogue with Joe Kittinger. Talk at you later.